Hey, this is Arion Salazar from Third Eye Blind and others, and you are listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We would like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Arion Salazar.
Chronicling the first Third Eye Blind album, Part 2.
Part 2.
Let's get to it.
All right, good night.
Good night.
For fans of Ragged Records, Trash Can Annie, downtown Davenport, October 28th, they're doing a live music show event at 6 p.m. with the Golden Fleece and Leviticus.
Fantastic. We'll be there. Well, let's start this up. Track number 1, Losing a Whole Year. When I listen to it, it's an anthem-esque song to me, to my ears. I don't know about anybody else. It was the fourth single off this album. What made the band choose this track for the number 1 track on the album?
You know, that's the one. I mean, in addition to, well, first of all, I think that we all, I know I did, and I feel like I wasn't the only one. We all thought that Losing a Whole Year was the absolute home run, smash hit, best song on the record. This is our mission statement, and I love that because, you know, as opposed to a song like Semi-Charmed Life, which is a kind of a more straight ahead pop song, a great one, but like, you know, or Jumper, or, you know, a few other songs, that Losing a Whole Year like really showcases the sort of British influence, like shoegazer bands like My Bloody Valentine or Ride, and Kevin. I mean, that's Kevin's thing. That's the voice of Kevin with these big, you know, chords, you know, alternate tuning, massive chords. Just really beautiful progression, and so everybody and also that song is everyone giving their all. So like on for my end, there's like I think there are parts of the songs where there are 3 basses playing at once at least. Wow. There might be, So there's like, you know, a distorted, and there's a distorted 8-string bass going through a Leslie speaker, overdubbed onto a normal bass, overdubbed onto, you know, that cuts in and out. I mean, we went off. So everybody sort of like put everything they had into that song, and I feel like you can hear it. I mean, when I listen to it, I can hear it, and I'm so proud of it. Oh. So maybe just that, I'm going to guess that that's why we put it first, was because it's like a pretty powerful opening salvo. And you know what I mean? And and it really stands out to me. That's the kind of music that sets Third Eye Blind, sets us apart from some of the other bands that we would then get lumped in with, like, no offense, but like Matchbox 20 or whatever other band who make great records, but are a little more straightforward and sonically what they're trying to do, like with, just they're more sort of song based. And I felt like that one, it was really showcased everything that was special about us.
Oh, fair enough. Well said.
By the way, I mean, just a quick, I don't know if you want to edit this afterthought shit, but like, for instance, like Losing a Whole Year, we started writing that in 1995. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't come out until 97. That's the neat thing about that. We had a little bit of time to finesse it, and also it's got Michael Urbano playing drums on it, and he is just that his drum track is really special. But that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right, track number 2, Narcolepsy. So you had 5 singles off this album. This was not one of them. This is probably what you would call a deeper cut. But for me, this whole album, it's still to this day I can listen to the whole thing from start to finish, and I can't just pick a song. I gotta put this whole album on start to finish, and so deep cuts like Narcolepsy, just the the lyrics of how do you like to be alone and drowning just caught me, because this was a transition year, 97 for me. I went from working retail out of college, not sure what the hell I'm going to do with my life, to finding that first career job and moving behind a desk, and so this whole album just kind of resonated.
One thing I want to interject on this track.
Thank you.
What's so unique about Narcolepsy is that the first minute and 30 seconds of this track is so hypnotic.
Yeah.
Until it ramps up.
Yeah.
At the 131 mark on it. Was that a concerted effort on this track to make the transitions big?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, so narcolepsy comes from, I believe at the time, Kevin Cadigan was legit having problems with narcolepsy, and had mentioned it to Steven, and that's how he started writing a song about it. But yes, the idea that we try to make, that hypnotic state, or that like in between sleep and wakefulness state, as part of the intro, as part of the different parts of the song, for sure. So that's why, like, for instance, this is the kind of stuff that Eric Valentine, in addition to many other things, would suggest. But remember, we were playing him what we had, and I was in the beginning sliding up the neck of the bass, like and he said, "Have you ever heard of the band Morphine?"
Oh yeah.
And Mark Sandman actually uses a slide on his bass. And what do you think about that? What do you think about using a slide? I'm like, yeah, and of course I knew Morphine. And I think I had met Mark before on tour, opening up for them with my old band. But so we did that. I used a slide, like doing that, and it's all super spacey. Kevin's thing the song is based around Kevin's progression, which is really neat. It's one of those signature Kevin Cadigan things, which is where he plays a rhythm thing happening on the lower strings, and then also plays a lead melody at the top. And so, yeah, man, I think thank you for, first of all, noticing and saying that. But I mean, I think that's a really good example of that. We totally try to create that feeling in the music, for sure.
Track 3, Semi-Charmed Life. It's the band's debut single off this album. It was applauded commercially, critically. You guys could do no wrong when you released this track. As far as choosing Semi-Charmed Life as the debut single off this album, was that a label decision, or was that a band decision, or was it a joint decision?
So that's you bring up a good example, and that's the one time when I can remember getting some static from our record label, which was we were all totally convinced that Losing All Year was our number one smash, and that this is what is going to break the band, and etc. It's got to be our first single. Which in hindsight is maybe silly, but that was when the label came in and said, no, we haven't been. I mean, this is an established deal. We've been waiting for this one, sort of. So, we were, and it didn't, honestly, it's not like it was like something we were totally against. I don't think anybody in the band was rock solid married to anything one way or the other. We were super excited to be putting our record out. At that point, we don't know that anything's going to be successful. I had already been in a band that had been signed to a major and put out a record and just had to do nothing, or had it sold 30,000 copies, which is like, maybe now, something.
Exactly.
But yeah, and it wasn't a great record, and this and that, and I had already been through kind of like this thing of, so it was no problem for them to go, yeah, guys, let's think about this. Let's just do this. Just trust us on this one. And okay, that's how. It's my memory. That's how it went.
Fair enough.
Well, the next track is Jumper, another big single for you guys. I think it might have been the 5th single. That song deals with suicide and trying to talk a friend off the ledge, which is a good subject to talk about, and maybe not people do enough. But can you talk a little bit about music recording of the song?
Yeah. So, I was looking at my notes. There is, Jumper, I even remember where we wrote some of these songs, where we fleshed them out. And I know for sure that Jumper was written, like fully written, well, musically and arranged in Soundwave Studios in Oakland, which was so cool because the Soundwave, just briefly, is a rehearsal studio that I had been using and going to since I started or actually it wasn't Soundwave itself, but the guy who ran Soundwave was the first person I met, was a man named Al Lucchese, a really important guy in the East Bay music scene. When I met him, I was 17, he was 24, 23, and he was a drummer, and he already had a studio space that had 2 rooms. One room was for him and his band, and the other room was being rented by a band called Legacy, who quickly became Testament. So that's how I know, like, the Testament guys, from the first time I went on, came into the scene and joined this band of 2 guys that were 23, 24 years old, looking at me going, "Are you sure you're 19, man?" I'm like, yeah, I'm not 19, dude. Because nobody wanted to have a 17-year-old kid in the band. But anyway, so he would go on to, he's still running Soundwave Studios, which is where Rancid rehearses, Faith No More, a bunch of other people, and through the years, tons of Testament, and through the years, like many other bands that like big bands, in fact, including Third Eye Blind for like decades, actually. But so we wrote it there. I know that we were listening to Oasis. It's got a kind of an Oasis guitar cadence. I feel like Jumper was written after we had been signed, or do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
If you can believe that, like Jumper was like an unexpected, like nice sort of bonus for the record company, because I feel like we wrote it after we were signed and we were fleshing out or filling out our record with other tunes. But anyway, I remember that Brad is huge in the writing of that song, because it opens up with a drum and bass thing that's a kind of a marching band drum pattern. I don't think our other drummer would have played that. Yeah. I don't know, but I know that that's very much like something that came out of Brad's heart and mind, and is super interesting. And it comes back in the middle of the song too, and it's important, right? It comes back at the end, that marching beat. I feel like it's a really important part of the song. So yeah, and it's a Steven tune. I know the bass line at the beginning and at the middle and the end is me paying homage to the Police, "The Bed's Too Big Without You." So if you ever listen to that song and Sting is bass playing, and then you put on Jumper, you'll hear "Where I Bid It." And then yeah, the lyrics, man. I mean, that's one of the heaviest songs. You know what? In fact, that brings me another point. Last time I was on with you guys, you asked me, "What does it feel like to hear people singing your lyrics?" And at the time, you know, when we last spoke, I don't think I really heard you, and I didn't really understand what you were trying to ask me, and I think I went on a tangent. But, you know, it's like that song. I still get people, even though I didn't write the lyrics myself, but you know, I helped write the music and definitely part of the track. I still get people messaging me and thanking me for this, that, and the other, for having that song be there for them in an important time. And I know it means a lot to a lot of people, and it's so like I'm super proud. And yeah, that's a kind of a heavy song and maybe ahead of its time, or I don't know. It's just a good song, you know, a good message.
Very much so. Track 5, Graduate, the second single to be released off the debut album. It reached 26 on the mainstream rock charts, 14 in the modern alternative charts. The cool thing about this track is that it was featured on the soundtrack to Can't Hardly Wait. And I'm torn on this album because it might be my favorite track on here. But I guess maybe can you talk a little bit more about getting this song on a movie soundtrack? How'd that work?
That was the kind of thing that had nothing to do with us. That was the kind of thing that would be how that worked would be there's somebody at a desk at Elektra Records whose job it is to field offers from, I believe it's called the sync placing, you know, getting sync licenses, syncing songs with movies. And you know what, often though, it would be because at that time, like we were pretty successful, they would get a call from somebody. Hey, we're making this movie called Can't Hardly Wait. We want to use a Third Eye Blind song. What have you got? And then maybe they might talk about this, that, or the other. And so usually that's how it would be. There was one time later where we were making the second record. The filmmakers, the guy whose name is Sam, what is his name? The guy who made American Beauty, Sam Mendes. Before American Beauty was finished, you know the movie American Beauty. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah.
They were just sort of vaguely interested in having a Third Eye Blind song on the record, and instead of just calling the record company, they actually came to Sausalito where we were recording that second record, asked us to take a break, brought us into the break room and put the movie on. And we watched the movie together, and then they were like, yeah, if you guys have a song you want to write, or if you think you might have something already, or you want to write something around it, we're interested. And nothing came of it, but that was the one example of that kind of thing I remember.
Oh, so cool. That song's such a banger. Yeah. Love it, man.
Graduate?
Yeah.
Hey, man, I mean, I can say that, I thank you. First of all, thank you. Yeah, Graduate, what would I say about Graduate? Another song written at Soundwave, for sure. I think, I have a cassette of us writing this song and trying to write a verse. Like trying to come up with, we had the main part, you know, the main, which is sort of a chorus and then like a post-chorus, but then the verse is, echo fading, we can, right. That took a minute, but sorry to put you guys through that.
Fantastic,
love it.
So there, and that's another. I mean, that's a really good example of us writing together. Like I wrote a good chunk of the bridge on that song, and the guitar, the chords that are happening under the guitar solo. So I'm proud of it too. And then also there's all kinds of like distorted bass. There's a laser sound happening. I'm not sure if you hear it, but there's like a thing going pew. There's a
yes,
and like something that sounds like a rising sounds like it's probably a guitar, but it's like me in front of a speaker with distortion, and it's super cranked up loud, and I'm with a Mutron, which is an envelope filter, like a wah pedal thing, and I'm hitting the strings of the bass, and it makes that laser sound, and that kind of stuff was super exciting. That's what Eric Valentine let us do. Was like, hey, I've got an idea, or he would have the idea, and that's why it's like, hopefully that's why it bears repeating, repeated listening.
Very much so.
Next track is "How's It Gonna Be," which to me is that opposite of a ballad. It's you slow it down a little bit here, but it's the breakup song. It's more of, instead of about finding the love, it's more about the, hey, what's it gonna be like when you're gone and I'm not here. Can you talk a little bit more about like this song because I read that I think you had something to do with the arrangements of this one.
You know what's funny? I'm sorry to do this to you, but this is the only song that I actually like rolled in after being at work and they had done it. And I was just like, all right, we're ready for bass. It's the only song. But like that having been said, I'm super proud of what I played. And there is a funny story around it, which is, so that's Michael Urbano playing drums. So that's that like fat, Bonham swing. I mean, that song is just got a crazy groove, and that's him. And then I remember when I did show up, and I started to play it, and they had mostly had everything tracked, and I had a hard time figuring out what to play. I'm like, okay, I don't want to play too much, but I don't want to play it too simple. And somebody said, literally, like in a movie, they said, "Orion, this is your time to shine." And so I was like, wow, it's my time to shine. So I actually, somehow that cheesy line worked, and I was able to do that track, and I'm super proud of that track. It's just a bass track, but I'm way into it. It sounds kind of Zeppelin to me a little bit somehow. But the message of the song is poignant as hell. I mean, that's like, he had a good way of getting some simple but real shit across.
Yeah.
Part of my language.
Absolutely.
I think.
Track 7. Thanks a lot. The Slit the Throat to Your Confidence. It's a pretty heavy lyrical song here. It just when I listen to it, every time I listen to it, it just feels so heavy, like a heavy blanket. What is the story behind that song?
The story behind that song is, look, one thing is this, like, I mean, I don't want to tell tales out of, speak out of turn here, but I think that Stephen was, when I first met Stephen, he was going out with a woman, and they were young, but very much in love. She was a super nice lady. And I think that by the time this record was coming together, their thing they might have been drifting apart. So that's what a lot of these songs are about. I mean, no one's going to kill me for saying that. I'm sure that's already been discussed. But that's what I imagine that's what he's talking about. Musically, that's another good one where Kevin's playing the melody at the same time with it. He's playing chords. This one to me the chorus sounds like the Pumpkins, actually.
I can see that.
And actually we had a part in it that sounded a little bit too much like something else. And we had to cut it. We cut it out and actually, so it was my idea, of course. Everything was my idea. I just suggested like mute the bass and Kevin, because otherwise I would have had to have retracked all the stuff I did and tried to find the same tone in a different studio. This was like much later that we realized there's a riff in here that sounds like this other thing. And so we dropped the bass. It's a thanks a lot, and bass comes out. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear that guitar?
I can hear it.
So anyway, that's what they did. They changed that one riff. Kevin replayed it, and it didn't have any effect on the rest of the song, and nobody ever knew until this very moment, unfortunately. But yeah, that's another one. We just kitchen sink bass. There's bass harmonics. There's a bass solo. There's a bass solo in that song with a tape flange, where I watched Eric Valentine record my thing from the 2-track onto a cassette. Then he put the two of them, the 2-track and the cassette tape, play them together and move them around, recording them onto a third piece of tape, so that they got a natural flange, so that it sounded like an old Jimi Hendrix record or like a pedal or something. that's the fun stuff that was happening all the time.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Track number 8, Burning Man. It's such an intriguing track for me. It has moments of, I get almost like tropical vibes from that song in moments of that song. Am I totally
Like
off
Jimmy
base?
Buffett?
Am I totally off base by saying I get a little tropical feel hints here and there, or is it just my ear?
I get a little tired after I get a little feel. Like a little bit of Margaritaville.
I don't know what it's
I'm just
about.
kidding.
I don't know what it is.
Well,
it just gives me tropical
It is
vibes.
because- you know what it is? Here's what I think, and I just now thought of this. Like, and you're right. Actually, I feel like that. Kevin's part is maybe got a bit of a South African influence. I mean, it's full on rock tune, but his verse part is like funky in a kind of a like South African way, like the Cats. Some of the Cats who would play on Paul Simon's Graceland. I mean,
yes.
That's the cool thing about Kevin is like he's the guy who, for me, like I learned, I taught myself how to play bass by learning songs off records and learning every, Rush song that I loved. And so I got a lot of Geddy Lee's riffs and a lot of Bruce Thomas from Elvis Costello and the Attractions and whoever, like a lot of people that I loved, Flea, Larry Graham, whatever. But Kevin, I don't think he sat around learning songs very much. I feel like he sat around honing his own voice and writing shit and recording, putting it onto it, which I did too, but like not like him. Because I remember asking him one time, "Hey, did you?" Because he loved U2, he loved The Edge, so that when we played with him, it was a huge deal for him. And I just asked him, "So yeah, wow, you must know a lot of U2 songs." No, I don't really learn songs. I just sort of did my own thing. And so, but he has all this influence that he can draw on that is sort of unconscious. And maybe that thing in Burning Man is something he remembers from a funk album. Maybe it's a little bit of the Isley Brothers.
Maybe.
Or, Ernie Isley, or a little bit of South African or something.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like super weird odd time meter breaks in there. There's a lot of like da 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 and 1, 2, 3 bah. There's a lot of like weird. We became Fish in that song for a second, sort of, or as close as. Not really. I'm just saying we went into progressive mode on that song.
Sure.
For us.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about Burning Man. I'm sorry to go back.
No, it's okay.
I remember tracking the background vocals. That song has like gang vocals, like "They'll Get Ya," which is Kevin and I shouting like metal style into a mic, overdubbed 4 times. And the night we did that, I have a really clear memory of us going in and having tons of fun. And you can hear a bottle rolling around at one point because we knocked over a bottle of beer, and there's laughing in it, and they just kept it all in. It gives it a nice sense of joy. Maybe that's another thing, a part of the island shit that you're hearing there. So that was Burning Man was like the best one. Some of the fun times of Third Eye Blind, like band bonding.
Yeah.
Okay,
Jeff, you got the next one?
Well, what I remember about "Good for You" is just I think this one slows down a bit again too, and I think in the lyrics this one seemed like it was he's asking somebody to stick around and stay, and he wants to be there for them when life should go. Doesn't know where life should go, and can you talk a little bit about your contributions with this one?
Sure. Okay, Good for You. Yeah, good for You is early. So Good for You, I feel like I remember possibly starting to write that song when we had Steve Bowman. That would have made it like early '95. And there's a couple, at least 1 or 2 other demos of that. One with Michael Urbano playing. And I always felt like good. Let's see, we had to teach it. I had to teach one part to Brad. Yada yada yada. I'm looking at my notes. That's another one that's like this shoegaze element of Third Eye Blind. See, that's the thing people forget is like Third Eye Blind became this. Now they're like finally people realized, okay, it was like an early proto emo band, right? Not a Hootie and the Blowfish, or not a this or that, like not. And then Elektra was smart enough to know that in the beginning they had us touring with British bands. They had us opening up for James, and we went to the UK and we toured with The guy from the Stone Roses John Squire had a new band called the Seahorses. They were trying to slot us into like Brit rock, Brit pop, which I think is, I mean, that's kind of a lot of what we were. Good for You is another one of these tunes where this is a shoegaze type song. This is like like sort of plotting, like big guitars. Kind of what a lot of some of the Pumpkins maybe were trying to do, or Failure. Remember Failure?
Yes.
Yeah.
We love Failure, by the way. We love that band. And as far as the lyrics, I always felt like that was the best job of Steven, like playing the role of like a rock star on a poster, singing to some lonely teenager in their bedroom, going, "Hey, child," like just, like I could just feel that. Ooh, this one's gonna hit some kids in their headphones, and they're gonna know that Steven just wants them to be. He just wants to make it right for you, man. He just wants to. Is it good for you? All I want to do is be there for the things you're going through. I mean, I know I'm not trying to totally make a joke. I'm like,
no, right.
I felt like they achieved that.
Right, that's where I was going.
Was there subtle use of the organ in that song? Did I hear?
Yeah, there's.
Oh yeah, you played piano, I think.
Well, I don't. Did I play organ? And Good for You is. No, there's just a lot of bitching guitar, but there is a lot of Leslie speaker happening, which sounds like organ. They even put his voice through a Leslie at the beginning of the song.
Oh,
I think
that's why.
Or no, that's the background.
It gives a little organist feel to it.
Yeah, it's man. I mean, that's like this yet another song where I know that hours were spent trying to make cool sounds happen.
Yeah.
In addition to like, hey, we made a good song. Okay, great. Now it's time to make it sound like that was I mean, I will say this last thing. I've heard several interviews with Eric since, and he's one of the only people I've ever heard say this, where he's like, every time I make a record, the goal is, it doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to make the best record that's ever been made, period. Like, better than Sgt. Pepper, better than this, better than In Utero or whatever. And that, not that that's going to happen, but like that's the goal. And so like, let's take the time to do something special. And, I don't even know that bands have time to do that anymore. I guess kids can do that in their bedrooms more, but that was one of the last times where you could have, money to be in a studio taking that time. And then the chances of having a man like Eric Valentine who knew how to get those sounds, that's the other slim chance.
Gotcha. Well, track 10, London. Man, I tell you what, every time I listen to this track, it always gives me a punk rock vibe to it. It's one of the heavier tracks on this album. Talk a little bit more about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
London was written in the basement of this place that I was living in by Lake Merritt in Oakland. So that's fun. I moved in with this guy who was like this hippie guy who ate granola and like all the best foods and like, and ran marathons and shit. And then the man who owned the building was a jazz sax player, or not jazz, but like he had his record up on the wall that was him like wearing a Hawaiian. It was like remember what's the band? Damn it, soft rock, yacht rock. It was like he was like a dude from the yacht rock days who owned this building, and he was like, "Wait a minute, you're a musician? Well, I have a place downstairs you could rehearse." And we went down there, and there was his old Vanity record where he had like a Hawaiian shirt open with his chest hairs and his gold chain, with him and with a sax on the beach, and it was really cool. I mean, he's a nice guy. Anyway, we wrote that there, and yeah, London is like, that's a good example of Brad's drumming. Brad stepped up and was trying to become a rock drummer after hating rock music. Initially when we met him, was a straight ahead jazz, like, jazz rules, rock rules type of cat. And so he kills on that song. But yeah, the lyrics are real. I mean, actually, especially that one, I believe that is a real thing of a woman that Steven was dating, who was like, "Hey, I'm in England. Come on out. We party all night. We're going to go to the raves. We're going to do this and that." And he's like, no, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
So I believe that was a totally true story.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Jeff, you got the next one?
Well, yeah, the next one's "I Want You." I don't think you play bass on that one.
So check it out. Yeah, I didn't, and "I Want You" is like a interesting for me in the history of the thing, because nobody played on it. Nobody except for Steven and Eric, the producer, and at the time, if I'm honest, like that was a sticking point. That was taboo. We weren't not taboo, but it wasn't. Let's just say we weren't stoked to walk in and hear this song with like a drum loop on it. And Steven had played drums, and they looped them. And it was just sort of acoustic-y with these like really ambient, like in retrospect, fucking awesome. Delayed guitars and synth bass and all. I mean, it's just an awesome song. But at the time, between, let's say, the couple of us in the band, a guy whose name rhymes with Levend, we weren't too happy about it. And I grew to love it because I realized that I could play that. If we wanted to do it live, I could. First of all, Brad was really good at funk music, and he could hit that loop and make it funky. And I was also like super good funk player. Like that was kind of my bread and butter before Third Eye Blind. That was the band I was in, was mostly dance music. And so that I knew, and when I figured out that I could play that bass line with an octave pedal and like just do badass Pino Palladino stuff, I was like, yeah, maybe we ought to add this to the set. It seems like people like it. And, it's one of the most loved songs on the record. So what are you going to say? It's a great song.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Track 12, the background. When I listen to this track, at the beginning of this track, it almost gives me a reggae vibe to it. And then the tempo increases once again in the middle. Mm-hmm. And then once again, it calms at the end. Am I totally off base when I say I get almost like a reggae feel of it at the beginning of this track?
Of the background?
Yeah.
No, because like you would never be. You couldn't be off base, because like if that's how you felt about it, that's how you felt about it. Let's see. The background, I think. Because I always felt like the background was our version of, really cooler and like, or not cooler, but like more sonically interesting, like a Journey power ballad. Mm. But yes, that's the cool thing. Because it feels to me like you're hearing things that are sonic touches that are put in there in the production and in the choices of instruments. And the choices of like where stuff comes in and out, because it sounds like in that you're talking like maybe dub reggae, like ambient type way. Mm-hmm. There's stuff that's like there are vocals that are pushed back literally in the background, and it sounds spooky and yeah, man, it sounds like almost like the Specials Ghost Town or something. Mm. So I get it. I get what you're saying.
It is such a cool track.
It is, man. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Motorcycle Drive-By, another should have been a single for you guys. This one is a great song and probably one of my favorites.
That's a good point, actually. Believe it or not, I hadn't thought of that.
If I remember right, this one has like a little bit of that build up too, where it slows down, then builds up and crashes and gets fast, and then the lyrics. I've never been so alone, and I've never been so alive. The contrast of the two.
Oh, so actually, I'm pretty sure that like Motorcycle Drive-By was one of the earliest ones. Like,
yeah,
maybe before Kevin came in, there was a version of it that I played on, where we had snuck into some famous guy's studio when he wasn't home, and tracked it, and of course, we were totally respectful. Like, I don't mean to, but and that what happened to that song to make it into what it is really down to Michael Urbano's drum take, which apparently I wasn't there, but I think he played it in In fact, I'm sure he did it in one take, one time. So I believe he listened to it once and he's like, all right, just put it up. I mean, that's how good this guy was. He's like he'll go down in history as one of the greatest session drummers of all time. And it's not just because I know him, like, it's just a fact. And he's a Bay Area legend. And yeah, he played that thing where he just went with it. He felt the music and felt the lyrics. I think he was definitely playing to the lyrics too. And yeah, and then I think Kevin put in some really cool kind of edge guitars on there in the sort of outro. And I'm super proud of my bass line because the beginning of the song is just vocals, acoustic guitar, and a whole lot of meandering high register bass. Just the whole, just overplaying, like, you're like, why? What are you doing? But I did it, and then they're like, no, it's great. Let's leave it. And I'm like, cool, that's fine. I won't argue with that. And now it works. I mean, it just works. It was like it was all this doodling on the bass. That's more like a string part, I think. Like a violin part. And yeah, that's it is. Those lyrics, man, they're super heavy. I know that's that's like maybe in the top 5 most popular songs. Whenever speaking of, what you were talking about last time, when people sing along with our songs, even when we went out and did our club tour, 5 years ago with Kevin and Tony and I, everybody and wherever we went, just singing every line to that song, and there's a lot of lyrics in that song.
Yeah.
So yeah, it touches people, and I'm super proud of that too. And yeah, it probably should have been a single.
Track number 14, the track on the album, God of Wine, has a message dealing with addiction of sorts. Lyrics, let's get clean again. Can I keep it all together? Pretty powerful stuff for the last track of an album. Was that intentional to put something that heavy at the very end?
Maybe. I think it just kind of fit. When we sequenced the record, like, we agonized over it, and yeah, I think that it felt like a pretty powerful climax, and it was slower than everything else, so it was like bringing it down to something really bass. Not bass. I mean, that word is a strange connotation now, but something simple. And as far as the lyrics, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're super personal to Steven. I won't go into it, even though he's spoken about it before, but he's got some stuff in his personal life with regards to people close to him, even back then, that would probably are the reason why the lyrics, why that song is written like that, lyrically. So it's super real. I mean, hey, that's another thing about this whole record is, like, at that time, there was no success and we're all poor. And not, I don't mean really like they always talk about the vow of poverty, but like struggling musician, check to check, like that, and then no rich, personally, no, I don't think anybody had any rich, like, parents to fall back on or anything. So, but yeah, that's why that's that one at the end. And it's like, yeah, that's I remember Steven would always say, this last song is my favorite song on the record. It's called God of Wine. It always had a heavy duty, and I would make fun of it for it. I feel bad about that. But yeah, that was his, we ended with that song forever too. And that's another fan favorite, I think. And yeah, it's real deal. It's got the end, it's got the, if you listen closely, the beat, the groove at the end, which I put in there, was the Eagles. I think the song is called, and the Beastie Boys sampled it on High Plains Drifter. It's called Those Shoes. So we just put in that drum and bass groove at the end, just with the same chord progression, But yeah, man, it's a heavy song, and I think a good way to end the record.
And the one thing I can tell you, and I can't speak for Jeff, but one thing I can tell you from taking away from this album, and I guess listening to it again after all these years later, I've been listening to it all week, being reacquainted with it, is like this song's subject matter was real and it was deep. And I think for all the commercial success that it had, I think a lot of the commercial listeners out there didn't realize the real subject matter, the real stuff that was going on in the lyrics. As for you as the artist, and maybe, I don't know if you can speak for the rest of the band or not, did you feel as though the commercial success of this album, do you feel like it overshadowed the message to a lot of these songs? Am I making sense there?
Maybe, yeah, like for sure. Like maybe in this sort of, in the immediately following years, where it became, because there's a combination of things. There's a thing of like Steven having a certain kind of a reputation as being this or that played into whatever and how people looked at us and talked about us, and some, because maybe he was a little bit of this or that, there were some people who weren't real happy to see us get so successful. And I think of course it did overshadow, because especially when that song Semi-Charmed Life is really on the surface, like it's been everybody knows is very happy sounding. It sounds like a song that you might hear on a kid's show or something, but it's super dark. I mean, it's really twisted. The lyrics are not for kids. So like that thing overshadowed, that might have overshadowed what people thought of the band. They might have put us into pigeonholed us on a certain way. And then with the next record, there was this like crazy pressure that we couldn't live up to. And we're also going through this internal drama. But yeah, it is what it is. I think by now that there's enough people who know, and I'll say it again, like I really believe no matter what you think about this person or that person, at the time, all these songs are from the heart, real, about real shit that happened to this man, that happened to this person. So that's why they sound that way. That's why they sound sincere. And it's possible that it did overshadow it, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Hopefully by now enough people can maybe have revisited and listen to it with fresh ears, and
absolutely.
I think they have, actually. I think there's like a new generations of Third Eye Blind fans are happening and exist, and so they will decide what they want to think about it themselves.
Well said. All right, so we're at the conclusion of analyzing the debut album from Third Eye Blind. Now it's your turn to plug and promote what you got going on right now.
Cool. Thank you guys for having me. It was good to talk to you, and it was good to look back at all this stuff. But so now actually right at the moment I am working. There's a guitar player named Jason Becker, and do you know about Jason Becker?
Absolutely.
Okay, so did I talk about Jason Becker last time?
I don't recall.
I don't know.
Who knows? We spoke of Jason Becker with another artist that worked with him.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. So Jason he has like a treasure trove, basically like the Jason Becker anthology of like, they opened the vault and there were he was incredibly prolific. I think there was a certain point when he found out, when he was diagnosed with ALS, he did the smart thing and he went in and just started tracking music like crazy. So there are a bunch of unfinished songs or beginnings of songs or rough demos. And a friend of mine is a good friend of the Beckers and of Jason and his family. I know the guys; they're from the Bay Area. I know the family too. But my friend Dave Lopez is actually the facilitator, who's got me producing a couple songs, working with some really cool people doing it. And right now I'm working on that. And I think they'll put a record out on like a limited basis, on like maybe a Patreon basis and a full-on release. But So yeah, I'm working on Jason Becker stuff and just feel like super grateful to be doing it, like adding bass, fleshing them out into tracks, adding drums, having drummers play on them on a few songs.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It dawned on me, we talked to Matt Bissonette about Jason Becker.
Yeah.
Back in the David Lee Roth
Oh my
days.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I...
Wow. Matt Bissonette. How cool is that? I love Matt Bissonette.
Yeah. Phenomenal. All right.
I love Matt and I love Greg. All right.
So, this was so informational for us, and this is going to be so informational for our listeners. We cannot thank you enough for actually doing. I know this was a lot for you tonight, but this was fantastic.
All good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for coming on again.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It
Yeah,
was
thank
a treat, man.
Thanks, you guys. Have a good night.
You too.
right,
Take
thank
care of
you.
yourself. All right. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye. Later.
Everybody hides at home inside their nest of snakes. Everybody grinds the stone and makes their own mistakes. Hide in the headlights, fight the grip of fear. You can make your dreams come true, but you just can't do it here. Hey! Everybody eyes the gun and screams inside their head. Everybody bites their tongue and pays their bills instead. Hide in the spotlights, fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey! Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their eyes. They roll the dice. Take your chances.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The Sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.